What's up, guys? Welcome to Operation B, the podcast. I am your host, Jamie Thurber, and I am here to take you on a journey of deepening, of expansion, of understanding more about who you are and why you're here and how to operate in an optimal way that allows you to do what you want to do, feel how you want to feel, take care of yourself truly, and support everything that your heart desires. Welcome back to another episode of Operation B. You guys, I'm very excited today. I have someone that has become a very pivotal part of my life and my wellness here with me today, Dr. Jason Hammett.
Hello.
He is a co-owner, and there's four of you, right? Of the Wellness Connection in O'Fallon, Missouri, and then there's another location now in Winsville.
Yep.
Okay. And so I'm going to read you guys a little bit about his history really quick, just because I think it's important. And then we'll get into a lot of the core reasons why I wanted you to come on today. I love this. This is the verbiage is so good. A passionate healer, devoted family man, and relentless advocate for natural wellness. As a clinical director at the Wellness Connection in O'Fallon, Dr. Jason brings over 20 years of chiropractic experience, specializing in structural correction and regenerative therapies. His work is rooted in the simple but powerful belief the body is designed to heal when given the right support. But what truly sets Dr. Hammett apart is his character, grounded, energetic, and driven by purpose. He lives what he teaches, maintaining a disciplined lifestyle that includes fitness, mental focus, and gratitude. He's a marathoner, Ironman finisher, and lifelong student of personal growth.
That was very nice.
Right?
I appreciate that.
I was looking and I'm going, okay, Dr. J, I know 1,000 things, not 1,000 things, but I know enough about you.
I know 1,000.
But I also, probably, but I also don't, it's not like I study your history and how many years you've been a doctor and exactly. I know what you do because I've been through a lot of it.
Yeah.
Or one of my family members has at this point. And so to give you guys some context as to how we met, my brother, who is awesome. And he's a man of, I don't want to say he's a man of few words. He talks plenty, but he's not one to just share a ton. And so when he tells you about something, he recommends something, it means something. I listen. And we have this thing, unfortunately, in our family where a lot of us have dealt with some sort of health thing, whether it was an injury that didn't get fixed properly or something. And so I knew he had pain and he had back surgery in college and things like that. And so he kind of knew a little bit about what I was going through. Honestly, at that time, I didn't share much with him about my own symptoms and pain and things like that. And I had recently gotten the relief from the nausea, the chronic constant nausea. And I knew that I had more capacity available now to try to figure out what else was going on. And Jesse was like, you need to talk to Dr. Jason. And again, I'm like, well, tell me more. And he didn't have a whole lot to say other than, you see how much more active I am and how much healthier I am? And I was like, yeah. Because he wasn't very active as a teen. As a child, he was. Teen in early 20s, he wasn't. And so there was a drastic difference, And I thought maybe it was just the kids. And Stephanie's very into the gym and things like that. But what it really was is that you were able to make him move again. And so I thought, okay, let's do it. And I had Tony, who, as you guys know, is basically a doctor and is the reason that I'm well at all. Because honestly, he's like, you have to figure this out.
Yeah.
Okay, help me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we wound up at your clinic. And the moment I walked in, it was different.
Oh, I appreciate that.
It really was.
Thank you.
It matters. Something that.
Appreciate that. That's awesome.
Something that, as a person who does operations, I remember telling you this, once we got to know each other a little bit better, but I'm as I sit here, I can see the systems working.
Yeah. I'm a systems guy. I do like systems. I like them a lot, actually.
And it works, though. And we'll just start there for a second.
Yeah.
What's it like being in a business where it's not like it's just you and a couple other doctors. You have a good amount of staff.
Yeah, we do.
And you
pretty big team.
Keep a really beautiful vibe there always. You also, the systems work and they're consistent. I've very rarely been there, and I'll tell you guys a little bit about my treatments and how often I was there at a time,
Yeah.
And very rarely do I see it alter. How do you do that? How do you manage that?
Well, part of it though is, one, first and foremost, is it's intention, right? Intention, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to recognize that there's a controlled chaos that you can't control for
Hmm.
every variable. But I first and foremost I have to set it up for what works best for Jay,
Hmm.
right? And as you alluded to in that very kind like intro, and as my family will attest, and all my friends I grew up with, I am definitely a routine system, disciplined dude. And yet, when I have that structure, it allows me to be the artist within it.
Yeah.
So there is an inner artist. There is a little bit of a free spirit, as you know, like there's someone who's deeply emotional and connects and inspires and motivates, because that's just what I think my God calling is.
Hmm.
But there's the physical structure that I have to create to get that basically creates me to say, okay, all the boxes have been checked. We're good. Now I can be the artist, right?
Yeah.
So it starts out with the intention of what do you want the patient, the customer, the client to experience.
Yeah.
And then you start to reverse engineer it. And then you borrow from other experiences you've had in your life, whether it be a really nice restaurant, a really nice massage, spa,
Hmm.
a nice hotel. And then you start to say, how do we integrate that into our office? So then you create that framework and then you train on that framework.
Hmm.
So that's the one thing that I would argue that most service-based businesses, I'm shocked when I meet with other guys who own businesses that are in the service industry, they don't train.
Yeah.
I mean, training is something that we do every week, like non-negotiable.
Hmm.
Once a week for sure. There's a scheduled time, and then multiple times throughout the week, I'm grabbing my docs or my staff, and I'm spot checking. Like,
Okay.
hey,
That makes
listen, like this
sense.
happened. I heard this,
Hmm.
and I don't make them wrong. I don't, as you again know me as a person, is I'm not the destroy people. I'm the build people up guy.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to embarrass them in front of a staff or another staff member or a patient. Like I would never do that.
Hmm.
But I said, pull them aside and say, hey, listen, I noticed X, Y, Z happen. Like, and I give them a real life example. Like, here's an example, real quick. One of my team members just started to work in a different part of the office where there's more front facing duty, right?
Okay.
So there's people coming in the door, they see her, and she's got some type of drink, water or juice or something, but it's in like an Emo's cup.
Mm.
And run this entire gorgeous front desk, this custom placard,
It is very beautiful.
thousands upon thousands of dollars
The
spent on
branding
this.
is on point.
Yes, all of that's intentional. I'm not bragging about the money, but it makes sense what I'm about to tell you
Yeah.
next. And they got an Emo's cup, and
Hmm.
I just said, "Hey, listen, listen, I don't mind you drinking water. That's great. That's what we promote. But I said, the Emo's cup. I
Hmm.
said, what do you say we, if you need to, I'll buy it for you. But like, let's get a nice like mug or something. And I go, let me just give you an example. Let's just say you went to the nicest hotel in town, and you roll up in it, and the front desk, the lady's dressed all nice, and behind it you see a big Pizza Hut styrofoam cup or a Quick
Right.
Trip.
Right.
I
Right.
said, it kind of just devalues the entire experience. Does that make sense? She goes, yeah. So it's these little spot trainings
Hmm.
that have to be done, because as you've also alluded to, it didn't start off as big as it is.
Sure.
So as we've evolved and grown, you also have to continue to say, does that system still serve us? And
Hmm.
if not, how do we, because the end goal of the system is how do you improve the experience for the end user,
Yeah.
you, patient,
Hmm.
and then how do you also make it efficient for our team, not efficient, effective for our team
Yeah.
to be able to do their job. So it's constant evolution, constant reevaluating if it's working, and then you always have to train the system.
Yeah.
Always.
It makes sense. I think there's things like there's multiple things. I mean, I've seen you do it actually. Because I here's the thing, guys. When I started my treatment, my spine literally was like a zigzag line. It was like very emotional for me to see it up on the board, or on the TV screen, because all these years I'm like, I know something's wrong, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, nah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but in that time when you first get started, you're there for 3 days. You start at 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And so you're there a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the reason I can speak to this, and I think the most oppressive thing for me has always been it was so consistent. The vibe, the energy of everyone, the look of everything, the way it worked was wildly consistent every single time.
Well, that part of that though,
And I
you got
loved it.
well, that also, again, this is not about me,
Sure.
but I think that, and to your point though, it still is representation of the figureheads,
Yeah.
right? So me, my wife, Dr. Brian, Dr. Olivia,
Mhm.
like that is the representation of what we wanted. We're there still. Like we're still in the clinic. We're still part of it. It's not like just this. We just establish this and then we're peace. We're out.
Yeah.
No. This means something.
Mhm.
This is the standard that we have, and then openly in order for that to be consistent, it has to be real,
Yeah.
right? You can only fake and lie for so
I
long before you get
know.
caught up in it, right?
Yes.
So then on top of that, then I'll make the argument based just from your compliment that it's a reflection of the values that me, Whitney, Brian, Olivia have as human beings that happen just to translate those same values into our place of work, whether it
Yeah.
was serving pizzas or serving chiropractic or natural health care. That's what we chose to do.
Yeah.
But one step further is we hire that though too.
Yeah, I can tell.
Like you hire heart
Mm-hmm.
because you can train tactics,
Yep.
but you can't train emotion.
Be
You
fine.
can't train giving a shit,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't train that. Either you got it or you don't. And so you can start to sniff that out in someone when they don't really care.
Yeah.
And that's just not part. Like I just let those individuals go on to the next place they need to interview at. Like
Yeah.
it's just in a respectful way, right?
Yeah.
But
I
it's
think
like you just know like okay, that might not be a good fit
it
here.
fits or it doesn't. The
Yeah.
point that you made about talking about the cup, here's a thing that a lot of people, because I work with a lot of business owners, as you know, and most people will notice that thing and they'll complain about it to someone else,
Yeah.
to their wife or to me as your coach or
Yeah.
whoever. And they'll almost then get like a resentment against this person for having this ugly cup
Yeah.
that's not on our
Yeah.
brand sitting there instead of just addressing it and dealing with it. And
Yeah.
that's something I have always noticed too. Again, I'm just very observant in business, so it's just easy for me to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of the other doctors for quite a long time besides you. And obviously I'd met Whitney, which is his wife, and she had adjusted me a couple times and had other people, but now I also work with Dr. Olivia.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very obvious that the four of you are very aligned with your mission and your vision for the company, and you've done a really good job of cultivating that. Like Christy, the way that she talks and answers the phone, people think that's not real until they see her do it again.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, she's just that nice. Like that's real. She's like that all the time, and I can tell you that because I've been there. And as soon as they open, and as soon as they're like right before they're closing, like she's just that way.
Yeah. Again, I really appreciate those compliments, and that really means a lot because it's you and your work and all your clients and their work. Like you pour your heart into this thing. At least I believe a lot of people do, right? I think there are some people who don't, and that's okay. That's their journey. But like for me and for my wife and for my best friends, we've poured our heart into this. And have we made mistakes? For sure. Like for sure we have. But it's always never been with wrong intent. It's been because we had ignorance. It's been because we didn't have the street smarts. We didn't understand the game. We just didn't have the wisdom. We weren't old enough. We didn't have enough hits. You just learn along the way. And so, yeah, we made mistakes, but I think that, I know that the intention is always like do good things for others. And I have such a high emotional standard that gossip is not allowed in my life.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge thing for me. Like I work very hard, especially as I continue to age, to get rid of gossip in my personal life, and I don't tolerate it in my business life because I want my team to feel like this is a safe place.
Yeah.
Like you can have a really screwed up marriage. You can have a challenging life. You got a kid that's sick today. You got a parent that's dealing with really bad health issues. And the moment you walk into our office, the physical walls here, you're going to be supported. That cannot happen if you don't protect that. If your team doesn't know that that's something that you're actually looking out for them, including from other team members and the public. I've openly fired patients that were disrespectful to my team. Like
that
don't
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, like but they have to see that because then they know, oh, this isn't talk. He means it.
Yeah.
He's trying to look out for us. Then when we have issues in our team, we sit them down and say, all right, listen, we're going to have a meeting of 3. And usually at this stage of the career, our office manager, Amber, will take care of most of that. But we have to let people know, like, listen, we don't tolerate this here. Let's just talk like adults.
Yeah.
Let's be big boys and big girls and have a conversation and put it out there. Because otherwise, to your point, resentment and other emotions start to fester like a weed and it'll kill any business. I don't care how good it is and right intent. Like you got to create the expectation that in this place, this is sacred ground.
Yep.
This is a healing place. So you got to be right. And I was blessed to have some really great mentors, my uncle being, probably the biggest one, that taught me, and he was a chiropractor. He's why I became one.
Okay.
So then I worked with him as like my associateship for 3 years in Oklahoma with him. And some of the most valuable lessons that I still use today, he taught me. And one of them was, he goes, Jason, before you walk into this office, meaning his office, I want you to imagine there's a tree right here. And whatever crap you got going on in your life, you take it off and you hang it on the tree and you walk in here with a clear mind because it has nothing to do with these people you're going to see today. And at the end of the day, when you walk out of here, if you choose to put that crap back on, then you can grab it off that tree.
Sure, it'll be
But
waiting for you.
yeah, but for now, when you walk into here, you leave that crap outside.
Yeah.
So that's some of the things we try to promote. And that's the only way I contend that you can have that consistency.
Yeah.
And then people buy in. You know, they know that it's a safe place, that they're being supported. Yeah, I think that's it.
I think I can see too that they know it's obvious that you guys are helping people, and that's lovely to be a part of too.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like the girl at the front that's answering the phone, and that's all she's doing. She's having, I can only imagine the things they see. People coming in with a cane or a walker, and then within a year or 6 months or whatever, they're walking around without pain or like
Yeah.
at least moving. And just it could be, I could see it being very rewarding. I mean, I've noticed that just for people of me being in, we have the same appointment time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think that that's beautiful because also in the world that we live in right now and we have for the past 5-6 years, we lack that.
Yeah.
And so having a place you could go where there's a common denominator, which is the care, the love, the desire to have a better life for yourself and your employees and your patients. I mean, it's a beautiful ripple effect, really.
I appreciate you saying that. And I would add to that and just say that what I've tried to do with our team is no matter what role they're doing, answering phones, believe it or not, taking out trash, doing the treatment, working on insurance for some of the patients, right? I've tried to have them see how every role is actually fulfilling the patient outcome, right? And we get really granular on that.
I love
like it gets super deep because they have to see that them answering a phone call could literally change someone's life. That them taking a disgruntled phone call could change someone's life. How they respond in that moment either is going to push this person away, even if they never come back to our office.
Yeah.
But this could push them away from anything else that might actually change or save their life. Or say, hey, these people handled that with class. I don't want to go back to them, but I'll give someone else a try.
Sure.
Right? We could go for an hour alone on the minutia of how every little thing matters and how everyone has to understand how their part, even if they're not doing a chiropractic visit, even if they're not doing an injection, even if they're not giving someone a prescription for nutritional work, right? They all matter. And when they feel that, like you said, then there's buy-in too.
Yeah.
Because they see it.
That. Yeah.
Right?
You know what's funny is that, I mean, partially this is by design, but again, it's going to make this whole episode might be like, Jamie's making Dr. Jason feel really great about himself.
Hey, I was going to say,
so much
if I'm
compliments.
ever having, which I do, if I'm having a crappy day and I'm down in the dumps, I'm kind of depressed, I'm like, James, can you just go ahead and read that bio again? Because that was awesome.
Right, you need to remind me, like, this is working.
Yeah.
Because as you're talking, I'm thinking about how crucial all of those parts are. Because when I first came there, I could have very easily crawled back into a spot and not done work. And the reason is that and unfortunately we have quite the epidemic of chronic pain and chronic illness happening with everyone going to doctors and being told, well, I don't know, or that's not real. Like, and then it leads to all the mental aspect and all these things. And so once you reach the point that you find another person that somebody says, oh, this guy might help you. If there's any disconnect there, if I would have called and it would have been rude or it wouldn't have felt easy, or I would have showed up and it would have been awkward and hard, I don't know that I would come back, just because at that place where I was, just walking through that door was terrifying.
Yes.
It really, truly was. Yeah. And then I remember coming in, I mean, I've been to chiropractors many times so Dr. McLean was my family chiropractor in Florissant, and through all of my injuries, he helped a lot, So I'd been to a chiropractor before. Like, I know the drill.
Yeah.
But you guys do things very different.
Yeah.
So my first visit, and also Jesse did not tell me anything. God love him.
Yeah.
He's like, no, do this.
Yeah.
But the thing I like, and there's so many parallels, is so when you first go in and you do all the testing and get the measurements and get x-rays, you don't get adjusted that day.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. I didn't expect that. But I didn't leave with a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't leave with a bad feeling. I knew I was coming back. I knew I was bringing my support person, so bringing Tony, and we were going to talk about it. Then I was a little more nervous for the second appointment because then I'm like, I don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And the way that it's set up was able to create though enough support there where I was like, oh, this is different. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't bad and it's different. So I'm going to see it through and I'm going to find out what they have to say to me. And in that process, I feel like, and I know when I talk about having chronic illness and not finding an answer for so long online, I get dozens of messages every single time of people like, how do you stay positive? How did you stay productive?
Mm.
How do you do this? Like, I wish I could find this, that, or the other thing. And it's just so it is so common. And I give advice as much as I can, but the thing I tell people is look for something that's different than practices and things you've seen and had happen to you before, and be willing to not give up on yourself.
Yeah.
The thing that
Mm.
you do that fits perfectly into, and I remember in our first meeting, so guys, when you first go in, I don't meet Dr. J the first time. I get my x-rays and my evaluation, and then we met the second time and go over all the results. And so as we're doing that, you found out what I do for a living, and then there was like an instant shift
Instant.
between the two of us.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, we're
Yeah.
totally on the same page.
Yeah. 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 I remember that day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the buy-in
Yeah.
is, yeah, there's obviously a financial exchange because
Yeah.
there were services. And what I know about what the work that happens there, and now I see on the functional medicine side also I'm doing, is that you could provide me the perfect everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't do my part, it's not going to, my result is going to be altered by that.
Yeah.
And so I tell anybody I've sent there, don't go until you're ready to
Mm-hmm.
do your part.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do your part, you're doing their gift a disservice because it's wildly different. And that was big to me, of me to know, okay, there's something I can actually do to contribute to me feeling better, because there never was before.
Yeah.
That's a big part.
There's a lot in there to unpack. There's a couple of things. Can I add?
Yeah,
It's gonna
please,
put-
go.
there's a number of things. So again, I know you speak to a number of types of business owners. And I think that you hit on something that was really important. In my own like journey of like kind of learning about myself, but also what it means to be a business owner and trying to attract other human beings to use your services, it really, the weight and the gravity of someone else like coming and taking that scary step across the threshold of my office, I can't speak to enough like how much reverence I have for that. Like it didn't happen in my 20s. I was like, oh yeah, come on in, because for me, as you alluded to in my beautiful bio, I've just always been dialed in to train. Like my buddies will tell you, I was the guy that was doing exercises and working out and running up. Like I grew up in Western New York where we had like lots of snow. So I lived near one of the pits where they had all the sand for the snow truck. So I would run up and down that because I saw Rocky do it.
Right? You're like,
Right.
perfect.
Right. So I would be like, what are you doing, dude? I'm like, I'm just training. Right. So like for me to go and seek out some advice on how to be more fit or be healthier or try this new cutting edge thing, that wasn't a big deal for me because that was just who I be, right? But I realized that most of our culture isn't that way, and it's really scary. And people are really going to protect their own self-esteem because they don't want to be judged. They don't want to be told they were wrong. And so I'm extremely sensitive to that, what you just said about where the state where people are coming in. And openly, I'm not a business coach, but I will tell you, as a guy who audits, by me going into another business and seeing how they respond, I would tell any and all of your clients out there to really get in that place where you understand and deeply respect the amount of courage it takes for anyone to pick up the phone or to walk into your place of business and just inquire about what you do and how it might solve a problem in their life. We are way too trivial with other people's energy, their money, etc. We just, I don't know what it is in our culture. We're just like, people expect it. because you got a shingle and you sell like light bulbs
Yeah.
or coffee or a chiropractic adjustment or foot care, that you should be walking in here wanting to throw me money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not how it works.
Mm-mm.
Like, in a relationship, you don't just, because you roll in and you got a nice looking suit on, doesn't mean you're gonna get the girl in the bar.
Right.
Right? Like, you
Right.
gotta, like, she's not gonna say marry me. Like,
Right.
you have to, like, you have to date them. You have to earn their trust. You
Sure.
have to, like, they have to be a connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's same thing in business.
Yeah.
Like, it's, and not to make it weird. That wasn't meant to be a weird
No,
thing,
no,
but it's
you're
like
not wrong.
you're creating a relationship,
Yeah. Yep.
doctor or patient or not. It's talking about client and service
Provider.
provider.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta take a moment and honor the fact that it might be hard for that person to ask for help, and in doing so, don't make them wrong for their past
Yeah.
choices. If they use a different cleaning company or a different shampoo or a different stylist or a different doctor, or chose a different type of healthcare that you may not agree with, don't make them wrong because of that.
That's probably
Like,
part of why they needed so much courage to come try again with you
yeah,
anyways.
yeah.
You know.
And to your point is, there's a reason why, and I can't speak, I'll just speak openly for what we do. There's a reason why, because I generally do study your test results,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't see patients and study the test results all in the same time.
Yeah, that'd be
And
crazy.
if you were my sister, I would want someone to actually spend some time looking at the x-rays, looking at the test results, looking at the
Yeah.
notes, going over it, and deciding, yeah, this is the game plan that I would do for this person. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's just, when you were talking, I just wanted to really highlight that, like, from a standpoint of the energy that it takes someone to pick up the phone, to come in the door.
Mm-hmm.
I would say these days, especially in healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
is really hard. And I
Yeah.
think that any doctor, and unfortunately, we see that as an issue. And I'm not here to
Yeah.
throw any doctors under the bus, but when you're fed patients in a system and you don't have to earn them,
Yeah.
it's amazing how crappy you'll treat them. How bedside manner isn't a thing, isn't it an art, because you've got 50 behind them because the big hospital system is just feeding you with patients and you're
Yeah.
just taking a paycheck. It's
Mm-hmm.
different when you own your own place. I have a ton of respect for the docs out there that have gone out on their own, broken away
Mm-hmm.
from big hospitals. Many of them are my friends. I got a lot of buddies that
Yeah.
are doing this, and it's amazing how their entire concept will change. Like, whoa, it's different
Mm-hmm.
when, like, you don't know when the next patient's going to come from. Like,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I get it 100%. I think the interesting part too is, as a patient, my mindset shift. So, doing the work I've been doing with Olivia and on all the internal things, so I started getting like a sinus, what I knew, because every year I get like almost get a sinus infection. I could feel it coming. And my initial normal reaction is, wait, do I need to get something? Do I need to go to Walgreens? Do I need to get, you know, call a doctor and get a prescription? And then I remember, no, you've been so good and not had to take an antibiotic in so many years.
yeah,
And so the next time I was in for an adjustment, I just asked Christy, I said, hey, you guys have something for this? She goes, oh, yeah, absolutely. Come here, let me show you. And this is how you use it. And it worked perfectly. But
yeah,
even because we're so trained
yeah,
to not ask for help,
yeah.
but just try to figure it out ourselves, or this is the only way,
That's right.
even though the only way has never worked for me.
Yeah.
So I know so it's a good example of how just like ingrained it is in us.
When it comes to health, like, that's something I've also become very sensitive to is, um, you got to recognize that from a young age, you've been programmed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that medicine is bad. I'm not at all saying that. But I am saying that when you only have one type of delivery method
Mm-hmm.
that has been promoted at a very, very high level and very strategically. And again, I have many friends that are medical providers, medical doctors, and they're very, very intelligent, very smart people, and they work very hard to get to the spots that they're at. And they're just doing their job as well,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Sure.
And so they too have also been in that same confines. When you go to school and you're taught this is what you do for this, well, you got to take a step back and also look at who's funding the curriculums or who's funding the research, the grants that then enforce the curriculums. And then you got, the Thurber family, mom and dad raising these kids, and you're watching TV commercials talking about medications.
Mm-hmm.
And you just go,
Just the norm.
it is definitely, our culture is extremely inundated with that psychology, and it's pressed upon us from a very young age.
Yeah.
So to step outside of it is tough because many people feel like, again, going back to that self-esteem thing,
Yeah.
is many people don't want to step outside of that because they're worried about what their friends, their family, their
Yeah.
parents might think
Hmm.
if they don't follow the company line
Yeah.
with regards to healthcare.
Hmm.
I've seen that thousands upon thousands of times in 22 years in practice, where you just get people who really genuinely want to try it, but they're scared.
Yeah.
Not scared of not necessarily a result, but they're scared of the ostracization that's going to occur from
Hmm.
friends, families, or coworkers if they were to try this.
Yeah.
Where again, I have to be sensitive because I'm like, well, who cares?
Yeah. Right.
Like, it's your body, right?
Right.
Like, what
Right.
do you care what your dad thinks?
I
Just do
know.
it, right?
Yeah. And
So
see,
whatever.
and Tony's like that. So that's the
Yeah.
funny part. And so he had to learn too. He still has a hard time sometimes because everybody he was surrounded by were also pro athletes, right? So
Yeah.
this was normal to them, and it was never normal to me. So when we met, he was like, "What do you mean you don't know blah 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 thing?" And I'm like, "I never thought of it that way."
Yeah.
And to use my dad as an example, my dad had convinced himself, and I know a lot of people do this too, but he had convinced himself that the type of medical care, and there is a layer of this,
Hmm.
but that was available to Tony was not available to him because Tony is a pro athlete and has money.
Hmm.
And I was like, there's a bit of that, sure. You
There's
might
truth.
have a
There's some
little,
truth to that.
some truth to
Yeah.
that access. Like he was getting PRP injections before anyone else even knew they
Right.
existed, and they're just now being offered,
Yes.
to people. Like I had one, my arm can move. This is a
Yeah.
big moment for Dr. Jason and I.
Yeah.
I put my
Yeah.
arm up
Yeah.
because it was like a here moment at
Yeah.
one point.
And it's
Um,
true. Just so you know, real quick pause.
yeah.
I tell patients that, and like you're only validating exactly what I said. I said it's been around since the 90s,
Yeah.
where only pro athletes and celebrities used to get it done.
Seriously.
So you're
That's
just
a
saying
thing.
thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't
Yeah.
know Tony had it back then, so
Yeah.
now I have an actual real life person I
Proof.
know that had it done before it was available for
Yeah.
all of us common folk.
Right. And we'll make a quote. We'll make this into a clip so
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
share with your
I
people.
totally, yes. Yeah.
Because it's a real
I
thing.
appreciate that.
And so with that, I've had to convince my dad that like, yes, but now, and then I'll tell him, yes, and now you have access to the people Tony knows too, because of that. So like when my mom, before she had met you, she had an issue with a compressed nerve in her leg that another doctor was just like, oh, I think you just need to get pain injections in your back. And we just didn't feel right about that. So we went to Tony's doctor and he looked harder and farther and
Mhm.
figured out that it had nothing to do with her back at all.
Yeah.
And then she didn't have to have any injections. There's just certain therapy that she did and it went away. So it's just that is a mentality that I feel like is very difficult. Is that I know one of the reasons, but does that feed into why you do ask on both sides of the practice on the chiropractic and functional medicine that they bring a support person with them to their meeting?
Yeah. So I do that first and foremost because I treat people the way I'd want to be treated. Like that's 100% one of my golden rules, right? In life in general, I try to at least. And if Whitney was going through, some health challenge, and whether she saw an ad online or her brother said, "Hey, go see this guy," and maybe they're doing some different things that's maybe a little outside the box. Well, I want to go.
Yeah.
I want to know I want to see this guy. I want to sniff this out.
Yeah.
I want to see if he's full of crap,
Mhm.
right? And then I also want to have the opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah.
Now, coming from a family, so my brother, I'm not sure if you knew this, my brother had really severe rheumatoid arthritis as a child. Like he had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So it was significant, like almost lost his foot.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like bad. So growing up in Western New York, the town I did, we didn't have major hospitals that could accommodate his needs. So oftentimes we would take trips to either Buffalo or Rochester, New York, for doctor's visits.
Okay.
So I share this with you intentionally because even this is in the 80s, we dealt with a lot of medical bills.
Mhm.
And at that time, still insurance was covering most of everything.
Mhm.
So and we didn't have means. I didn't come from means. So I'm very sensitive to financial implications of health.
Mhm.
And I'm also sensitive to the fact that many of the things that we'll do in our office are not covered by insurance.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that the patient, when they have someone with them, one is privy to getting a feel of the office,
Mhm.
asking the doctor, the provider, the questions, even being skeptical. It's okay. Like
Right.
we just met. You should
Right.
be skeptical,
Yeah.
right? No, seriously.
Yeah.
And ask those questions and let your gut tell you. Does what I'm saying make sense?
Yeah.
Does the plan I'm putting forth make sense? And if you feel that I'm full of integrity, then let's lean in one step further. And that also being said is going back to my family background on that is knowing that there's a financial implication to it, I don't want you to feel like your wife got snowballed or your husband got
Right.
snowballed
Yeah.
or you guys were sold a bag of goods. I want you to understand what the costs are, what insurance does and what it doesn't cover. I want to clearly put it in line items so you can see there's no hidden fees in general. So the reason that the support system is encouraged, I don't make it mandatory.
Right.
Some people do. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I strongly encourage, and I tell them exactly what I just told you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's two reasons. I want you to feel supported, and yes, there's going to be some discussion about finances. I don't want you to feel surprised,
Yeah.
and that's it. Like, someone's got to know when you have a spouse, a loved one, a partner, a parent, whoever that is there with you on that second day.
Mm-hmm.
I have just seen. I don't have any data. I don't have exact reasons why, but the people who have a support system are getting better results. Like
Yeah.
in 22 years, I have observed this. If you have resistance, a sabotager at home on any level, that person eventually will make an excuse as to why this didn't work, only so they can stop getting the nag at home.
A
Like
hundred percent.
I've seen it thousands of times.
100%.
So at this point in the game, 22 years of doing this, over 500,000 patient visits, I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, you know,
Mhm.
I kind of can feel like if this is gonna how this is gonna play out,
Yeah.
right? But I also give them the grace to like, start, stop, do what you want.
Yeah.
It's your life. But yeah, too long-winded answer to say that I encourage spousal or partner or friend on the second visit so that person feels supported
Yeah.
and they feel like they made the choice what was best for them.
I like the part too that you go over what the at home jobs are. Like, what is your responsibility at home?
Yeah,
Because I know that if it felt better, and I have a couple friends, I've sent lots of people your way, and that with their spouse or partner being aware of what they needed to be doing at home, it helped hold them accountable to that too.
exactly.
Versus being like,
Exactly.
oh, you don't need
Yep.
to do that. No, they sat there and understood how important it was to do your spinal exercises or whatever. Like, I mean, we packed a whole
Yeah.
suitcase when we traveled so I could bring my blocks with me, and Tony got to bring pillows he liked. So it
Yeah.
worked. It was a win-win, but
Yeah.
because he understood how important it was.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because I forgot about it until just this moment when you brought that up. And that's maybe one of the reasons I got stronger with encouraging people to bring that loved one is I had a patient, this is many years ago, and she had begun care. And at the time, there was a different device that I was recommending for the neck to work on improving flexibility of the neck. And it looked a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
And she got ridiculed by her husband. She pulled it out because he didn't come and he didn't, it's not for me, it's for you type of thing,
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm not trying to convert everyone. I'm not here to make atheist
Sure.
believers at all. But that being said, is he didn't come to look at her X-rays. Wasn't involved in any of the orientation or additional classes that we teach, etc. And he criticized her or made fun of her for doing the neck exercise. And I remember her shortly after that stopping the neck exercise.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you brought that up because had he been there, even if he never wanted to receive care, which is fine.
Yeah, but
I
he
don't.
understood.
Yeah, he would have said, "Okay, that's my wife's X-rays. That's why she hurts. That's why the doctor is asking her to do that weird looking stretch.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make fun of her. I'm going to
Yeah.
actually support her on that." Yeah,
I know.
yeah, it's a shame.
It's interesting because so that kind of brings me to a couple points that I want to say about my own experience for people who haven't heard me talk about it. Not everybody has, but also to understand there's layers to chronic illness, pain, whatever it is, chronic energies or injuries. When no, I can't say I can't say it
It's
today.
okay. It's okay.
Injuries
There you go.
today.
You got it.
Jeez,
You got it.
my lord. So what a lot of people don't talk about is the emotional and mental piece of that puzzle
Mm,
of having something going on long term that is just chronically there
mm,
in everything that you're doing.
mm.
So when I finally walked into your office, and because I felt like I did, fairly good on my flexibility tests and things, like I'm like, okay, this is fine. And then you put the X-rays up on the screen, and it took me about 3 or 4 days to even really be able to talk about it outside of that appointment.
Mm.
And Tony could not understand. Very similar to you, where he's just like, "This is great. This is great news. Look how great this news is." And I'm like, "What? Look at my
Yeah,
poor body. Like,
yeah.
oh my God." You guys, when I say zigzag line, like I'm actually going to have them put a frame of it, actually.
Yeah.
I will
Okay.
give them the picture
Okay.
because it is not, I am not joking. Top to bottom, zigzag. from lots of injuries, lots of
Yeah.
falls, all kinds of random
Life
things,
in general,
life
though.
things. Yeah.
Gravity, aging, everything too.
And so, and then I remember the two of you being so excited about the fact that I had no degenerative,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, like that's great, but look at my
Yeah.
spine, you know? And
Yeah.
so later on, him and I talked about it, and he was like, I didn't understand why that would make you emotional. And I said, so there's a few aspects of it. Number one, I've been working very hard to find some compassion for this body that I used to hate because it made life so difficult.
Mm.
And that is very emotional in itself. And you're like, oh my God, you poor thing. Like, of course you hurt. Like,
Yeah.
of course you do. And then the side of like, somebody finally listened. And you were the second person that listened to me ever and wanted to help me
Mm.
in all the years. The first one was not very long before I met you. And I had the same reaction with him. And he was like, I don't understand. And I was like, you're the first person who offered to assist me with symptoms.
Mm.
And it was my GI specialist.
Yeah.
And he's like, really? I was like, yeah. No one else was like, oh, you're chronic, you're ill every single morning, you're nauseous constantly. They would just move on to the next thing. Instead, he was like, well, that's terrible. What can we do about that? I'm like,
Yeah.
what? You're willing to do something about this? It's
Yeah.
crazy. So the aspect of that, and partially I want people to know that because they're not alone. I know I'm not the only person who's told you these things before
Yeah.
either, but there are people out there that are willing and able to look at your whole system and help you. And I know what it's like to feel like that's not possible. Um, I want to tell everybody about the first time you and Tony met at my appointment.
It's the best.
So,
We were talking
oh
about this
my God.
before we started today, too.
Yes.
It's
And
great. It's a
I
great
thought
story.
when we were talking about being in the room, I'm like, oh, all right, let's tell the Tony story for a little
Yeah,
entertainment
this is great.
purposes.
This is awesome.
It is. It's so funny. So you guys, Tony is wildly intelligent.
Indeed. Very much so.
More than people expect him to be.
Mhm.
And so he's also massive, right? So he comes
He's a big
barreling
dude.
into a
Yeah.
room and he sits down, and he did come for all the reasons that you just said you would go with Whitney. That's all the reasons he was there.
Yeah.
Even if that wasn't encouraged, he still would have done that. And he sits in any of my appointments and questions my doctors, which is fine. But I like it because I don't always think of those things, but I also, it's hard. I can digest what you're saying to me, but it's hard for me to tell him, like
Yeah.
regurgitate it to him. And so we're sitting there, and you guys, if you've ever been to an orthopedic or chiro, they have the little, what do you
The
call them?
models.
Your little models.
So you guys were, just to also set the stage, you guys were in the room by yourself. I hadn't yet walked in.
No, yeah.
It's a big boardroom, beautiful org table.
Yep.
Yeah, I got all the models and stuff that I use
like
to
a knee
teach.
and a shoulder and a spine, are sitting there, and you can tell very clearly, like, we sit here, he sits here. And Dr. Jason comes in and introduces himself, and and Tony's aware that my brother recommended, so that's also a piece. He was already very pleased by what I had told him about my first visit, because to him he's like, okay, this is gonna get us somewhere. And so Tony, guys, likes to test people. And it's embarrassing. It's terribly embarrassing. Okay. And so he will do certain things in certain situations to feel someone out, always. And so he was being such a jerk. He took Dr. Jason's diagram or whatever, the model, out of his hand at one point. And I'm going, oh my God. Because again, I'm very nervous.
Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable in this room right now because this is scary. And then Tony's acting like a toddler, which is not uncommon, and takes your toy away. That's how I looked at it. I'm like, oh my God. And without skipping a beat, Dr. Jason stops and goes, no, this is mine. And he's like showing me, and then just kept talking. And I'm going, oh, okay. And then Tony did it again.
Yeah.
And at one point, there was a moment where you guys both looked at each other. And,
Hold on. You had said, stop being an asshole.
Or stop being a dick.
And
or
I
something
said,
like that.
yeah. And I said, you are being an asshole. Or a
Something like
dick.
that,
Yeah.
yes.
And I just was like, and then, yes, that's a fact.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Tony was like, you're right. I was. And you're like, I know what you were doing. Are we good?
Yeah.
He's like, yep. And then you guys have been buddies ever since.
So we got to set the story up a little deeper for others too. So again, if you recall from already, or as we talked about, I did not grow up in St. Louis.
Right.
I was not a hockey fan ever, except for when the Blues won the World Series. See how good of a hockey player I am, or a hockey guy. So when the Blues won the Stanley Cup, I was rooting for him. But
Sure.
I'm not a big hockey guy.
Right.
So when Tony walks in, I had no idea who this
Yeah.
guy was. I was like, oh, he's a big dude. Um, so also for those of you, if you can't tell on camera or if you're listening to audio, I'm not a big dude. I'm 5'10", maybe buck 60 on a good day. So Tony dwarfs me. Yeah. So yes, we were talking, and I have definitely studied frame control in regards to negotiating and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, this son of a bitch is trying to take my frame.
Right.
Like, I see what he's doing here. I see what he's doing. And so yes,
Yep.
we had a nice little carefrontation.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, we end up. He's super cool, dude. And afterwards, I was like, why does? Because he had said a couple of things like, yeah, I grew up in Canada, and then because he was saying stuff, if you remember,
About
and he
being
was
an
like,
athlete or something.
being an
I didn't
athlete,
say
and he was
anything.
very intelligent. I was like, man, do you have a background? He goes, no, I was a pro athlete for a while, and I've had a lot of injuries. I was like, okay. So I put two and two together, and then I'm like, why does that name sound familiar? So I and I Googled it.
I love it. I love
And
it.
then he popped up.
All these
And I
funny
was like,
videos.
yeah, all these funny videos. And I was like, and then I put a text out to a couple of my buddies that were old hockey players and friends and Kairos. And I go, guys, I just called this guy, and I put a screenshot of him up there. I just called him. His fiance just did a report of findings with me, and I called him an asshole. And needless to say, I got a lot of comments back. I'm like,
Oh, I'm
"You're
sure.
lucky you walked out of that room alive," or whatever. Yeah, but that was a fun day. That was a fun day.
When instead, what that was, it was an instant mutual respect.
Totally, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Like I said, he was extremely intelligent,
Mhm.
and luckily, luckily, I'd had thousands and thousands and thousands of those experiences and with guys who weren't professional athletes.
Sure.
But at the same token, it was cool. It was a funny day. It was a one that we could look back on and even
Yeah.
talk about here on this podcast and
Yeah.
laugh about. But yeah, he's a good dude. You're an amazing woman, and
Thank
I'm
you.
very honored and blessed to have both of you guys in my life and your family, your brother,
Yeah,
your
we
mom,
brought
your
you
dad.
everybody.
Yeah, you guys are good people. So
It's funny because you didn't even necessarily, I know you didn't do this intentionally, but you set this up perfectly because you were talking about people bring their partners because is this guy full of crap, and I
yeah,
want to know, and
yeah,
that's what that is,
yeah,
that's really
totally.
what he was doing. And like I had mentioned to you earlier, that what I know about Tony and what I know of what his belief is about being a man and being able to be respectful at certain levels with somebody, that's what that was. He
Yeah,
wanted to feel you out and see what kind of a guy you were, and to know that you were going to take care of me,
yeah.
and
That's cool.
you're that kind of guy too, so it worked out really well. And I just
Yeah,
think that's so funny. Like, what are the freaking odds of
yeah.
that?
That is cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was a cool moment. And I have had Tony on many shows talking about the difference in types of masculinity that's very different from like what's being talked about publicly today, because it's
Yeah,
really off
yeah,
base, the conversation. And so I like that. I wanted to throw that story in because I do have plenty of male clients and listeners that enjoy my Tony stories sometimes. So that was a
yeah.
good one.
That's a good one. Yeah, I
Yeah. Yeah.
appreciate the insight from your side of the table too on that one.
Yeah,
That's good.
I love it. So I have two more things that I really wanted to make sure we covered.
Yeah.
One was, not everybody who listens is in the St. Louis area.
Mm.
And I know that there has been more people doing similar things to what you do. If you were talking to somebody who doesn't live here and can't come in and have you be their chiropractor and do their adjustments in their program, what are a couple things that you would suggest people to look for in finding somebody?
Gosh, yeah, good
You
question.
know,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what can we give them that can help them at least do a little?
So I have shared what I'm about to share with you. I've shared with many friends. I've shared with people that their family have reached out to me because they're in like Ohio and they
Yeah.
just they're concerned, and maybe they come in with their family because they're visiting in town. They get an exam. I meet with them
Yeah.
just because I care about their family. It's like, yeah, let me meet with you. I know you're not gonna become a patient, but let me see what I find. Here's the advice I'd give. You have to, as you said about your experience in our office, and again, I'm very humbled and appreciative of your words. You have to go into that environment and you have to meet the staff and the doctor. And it doesn't have to be the exact same type of work that I do, but you have to feel that that doctor has done everything he can to listen to you, to examine you the right way, to get to the root cause of your problem, and then has a clear plan moving forward with benchmarks or landmarks to make sure you're on the right track.
Okay.
I have, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I think that when people are going in, if you're just if the doc's not displaying confidence, not arrogance,
Yeah.
huge difference, as you know.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
confidence of I've been here before, I've seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not downplaying your pain,
Right.
miss or sir, but I'm here to let you know I got enough reps to know, hey, you're in the right spot.
Yeah.
I've done these tests. This is what I'm finding,
Mm-hmm.
and here's the game plan to I think, based on my experience,
Mm-hmm.
will help you.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is I tell patients you got to make sure when you walk in that room that you feel that there is a wisdom
Mm-hmm.
and experience that that doctor is displaying
Yeah.
and in a bedside manner that resonates with you.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you got to make sure that all the office interworkings are transparent and make you feel good and don't make you feel icky
Yeah.
because that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So
That makes
to
a
your
lot
to
of
your
sense.
listeners that might not be local, you we have to examine the role of structural health.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do a good job in our culture.
Explain to them what you mean
Yeah,
by that.
we're great at getting mammograms. We're great at getting blood work and colonoscopies and yearly checkups, etc. But we don't do anything for our structure until there's a problem, and then it's very triage. Meaning, we'll go to our primary care. He'll say, go to 3 or 4 weeks, 6 weeks of PT, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And I have nothing against PTs. I love PTs. We work wonderful with PTs. But, chiropractic in and of itself is going to be different. It's going to be more of a proactive approach. It's going to be looking at the structure and the balance of your spine and all the joints. Are they moving correctly? If your joints aren't moving correctly, they're going to wear down faster. Period. End of story. Hard stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's not, I didn't make it up.
Yeah.
So, but what happens is we don't think about it until those joints are already arthritic and painful. But that's still not too late. Like you still got to get those joints to move effectively, even in the presence of arthritis.
Yeah.
And then once they are, you got to keep them moving effectively. It's like losing weight for your wedding and then going back to the crappy diet you had before and wondering why you don't like how you look.
Right.
Right. It's the same concept. We have to give reverence to structural health. That means working on our joints, working on our spine before there's a problem, or if there is a problem, then addressing it and then preventing it from spreading to other parts of our body.
Yeah.
So anyone out there, friend, family member, listener of yours, I'll just say openly, find a good chiro that you trust. Find one that resonates with you, that will look after your skeletal, your structural health, your preventative structural well-being, and find a frequency that works for you and for your needs. Some people it's once a week, some people it's once a month, some people it's once every couple of months, but you got to be consistent. Like there's no way you can predict anything if there's not a consistency to it, right?
It's very true. I mean, with my own body, I know it and I feel it and I can tell certain things and it's along the way. I mean, the thing that I also really like about doing the fact that I did chiropractic first before I started the functional medicine, I don't know that I would have been able to handle the functional medicine if I was still in as much pain as I was
well said.
before. I don't know that I would have had the capacity to do the protocols and go through all the pills and some of them don't make you feel good. And so if I would have had that on top of pain, it wouldn't have happened.
So sometimes it's interesting you say that. Sometimes we have cases though where it's the opposite.
Yeah, I
where
see that.
they're so inflamed on a cellular level, like from just systemic inflammation, that we send them over to the functional medicine side to work on calming that down.
My cousin's doing this right now.
Okay, yeah. So that we can actually start to work on the physical like maintenance and structure.
Yeah, makes sense.
One thing I feel like I feel called to share.
Yeah.
You alluded to it a couple of times in regards to other doctors and kind of just getting brushed over.
Sure.
I'm not here to stick up for those docs, but I do think it's important that people as consumers of healthcare get an understanding of what the game is. And so they may have a little more grace
I remember
for
you
these
sharing
docs.
this with me.
Yeah, I think it's important
a lot.
because
it
is important because when I was insecure, young doc chiropractor, trying to, people telling you you're a quack and this and that, yet you're still helping people. I was probably quick to like put these guys down, right? But again, as you get older and as you actually become friends with these guys and you're hanging out and you realize you don't have as much indifferent as you think you did.
Yeah.
It's all a bunch of crap. You're all insecure and you think that
Sure.
whatever that your flag, your sandbox is better than mine.
Yeah.
It all goes away once you actually like start to really own who you are, love who you are, and then you can respect someone else for what they do.
Yeah.
I have a lot of empathy for doctors in these big healthcare systems. first and foremost is one, you got to remember that many of these individuals have spent their entire life achieving
Yeah.
and
A
just
lot.
trying to do what everyone thought they should do. And they're usually smart individuals, and they're the athletes, et cetera. And they get into the med schools, and then on top of the med schools, they have to then go with their residencies, and it's all competition. It's all da da da. And I think as a culture, we program these folks to think that they are better,
Yeah.
right? So
Sure.
then when you're in a room and you're actually challenging them, they don't understand or don't have maybe even the capacity to take that criticism with kindness
Yeah.
and effectively communicate to you what they know in their head because they never had to,
Right.
right? In that world, they don't have to. It's how good was your grades? How good was your residency? What medical school did you get into? And
Yeah.
then it's all compete, compete, compete. You're awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome. And now here we're just going to feed you some people and now follow the company line. So many of these docs out there haven't had to work on empathy. They haven't had to work on communication. That just wasn't part of what their drive was.
Yeah.
And then second, behind that is when you understand the game of healthcare, unfortunately, there's a volume game.
Yeah.
And they're being forced to, they have quotas they have to meet, no different than everyone on your podcast in any role in their job. Blue collar guy up to the white collar executive. There's quotas, there's shareholders, there's a game, there's a business behind it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in the big hospital systems, I know for a fact, because I know people that are in the higher ups in the administration, they have certain criteria of patient visits, of prescriptions that have to be filled,
Yeah.
or there's penalties. So it's not all their fault.
Right.
It really isn't. So my encouragement to your listeners and to anyone that this lands on is have some grace for that person. You have no idea the life journey they've gone through. If they've been an absolute a-hole to you, well, then you know what? Give them some grace, say some prayers for them, and then fire them.
Right.
Go find someone.
Right.
Just because you
Yes.
give them grace and you're praying for them and you
have
have
to keep going.
But yeah, you have to get hit by the same damn bus. I mean, you can say, okay, I'm not going to speak ill will of this person. I wish them well. Hopefully they figure out their stuff and they start treating people with kindness. But in the meantime, you're fired. I'm just saying, give them some grace, but you don't have to sit there and be a battering ram for someone's lack of grace. Fair enough?
Yeah, that's
So I just feel like that's important
I
for
do
us,
too.
especially with you being a life coach and things. I think we have to kind of touch on that a little bit.
I think because a lot of people, it is again a cultural thing. Their doctor could be terrible to them, but they keep going and seeing him for 20 years.
Oh my gosh, I have said that.
It happens so much.
I've said that to patients so many times. I'm like, let's just say if I'm in a spousal relationship and it was unhealthy, and
Right.
if there was abuse, it's fine. Like most people would tell you not to be in that.
Right.
So why is it any different with our healthcare providers? If you
Right.
feel emotionally attacked every time you go in and talk about something that you want to try or do, and they make you feel like dog crap,
Yeah.
why are you signing back up for that? Like,
Yeah.
why are you physically paying a copay and signing back up to go into that?
Yeah.
Like that makes not sense to me. But again, to your point earlier, sometimes people don't have the self-confidence to say no, that they feel like they're going to hurt this doctor's feelings. Well, I get it, but he shouldn't have hurt your feelings either.
Well, and that's the thing of like we do treat, and they do have to go. It's so much work, but they're in our society. A doctor is like, well, if he said it, then okay, then that's the only thing.
It's changing though. It is changing.
It is starting to change.
It is changing.
I do
And
agree.
I think that we're seeing
Conversations.
so many medical doctors and DOs leave big hospital settings
Yeah.
and go out and start their own thing. I think the advent of like social media, long form communication like this, we've got a lot of great PhDs out there that are just doing some and talking about groundbreaking things. So it's normalizing this type of conversation for what would normally in the past be considered alternative health.
Sure.
It's now becoming like almost some of it's common sense health.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
don't eat sugars as much, stop eating processed food. It's like it cracks
Move
me
your
up.
body.
It's like us crazy chiropractors have been around for like 100 and some odd years or 200 years, whatever it is now, and RFK gets up there and starts talking about food dye getting removed, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like they've been talking, like, it's not rocket science.
We've been saying this,
right? If it's a chemical, synthetic, and it could kill like a cell in a petri dish, why are we putting it in our Cheerios?
and giving it to our babies.
Right. So it's not rocket science. But anyway,
No,
I digress. So,
No, I love
but
it.
yeah, I just think that we have to have some grace, and not everyone understands the game of healthcare and medicine.
Sure.
But I think over the last 5 years, probably the last maybe 15, definitely the last 5 to 7, people are becoming more aware of the game of healthcare
They are. Agreed.
and how it's kind of corroding some of that medical deity, if you will.
Yeah.
And they have to earn that trust now too.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think it's a level playing field for all of us in healthcare. We all got to earn the client, the patient's trust, all of us.
Which is great. I
Yeah.
love it. So I would like to wrap up with this piece. And so what's something I like to ask or talk about at least once is somebody that's here as a guest. Like there's a reason, as I've already told you guys 1,000 reasons why I brought Dr. Jason on. But I like to hear people's own personal experiences that I know keeps them grounded, keeps them present, because without that, you wouldn't be able to do all the things that you've talked about today. And so I know with you, your commitment and devotion to your family, to yourself, to your religion are huge driving factors. And so, as a man who is running a very quick moving, growing business with society constantly new things that you're learning, because I know you're like always sciencing some sort of thing. Like we'll talk about, I mentioned something about hydration one time. You're like, okay, so I have this whole sodium thing I'm working. Yeah, I'm like, oh my god, you and Tony are so similar. And so I know you're always like trying to figure out your biohacking and testing things on yourself. So there's just a lot going on in your world, and I know that you're not perfect at it, and you'll be the first one to say that. But I know there's a space there of this commitment and devotion that's very important to you, and I wanted to give you some space to talk about that and how you bring that to the forefront, but also how you manage it and maintain it.
That's a pretty deep question. Pretty deep question. And there's a lot going on. It's stirring inside of me right now as you said that. I just feel extremely blessed. And I think it's a blessing that I have. That's going to sound egotistical, but I think it's a grace that I've been given by God to recognize that blessing. It is a grace. Like there's no doubt in my mind that each day, like to give the opportunity just to look at my life. Like I lost my dad, like 24 years ago. Right. And I think about like, oh, sorry. I think about, the guy he was and what, we didn't have much as far as his money, but man, he just taught me how to be a good dude. Right. He taught me how to, be a good man for your community and what integrity meant, right? Like what it meant for you to be a good husband. He showed me, like what it meant to like stand up for your wife and be there for your boys. And I watched him lose his job multiple times, and he would just fight to find a role where he felt significance, even when he was going through layoffs, right? Until he got another job. And it's hard for me not to think now, and I'm blessed. We've worked hard, but we've created a great level of success, and it's hard not to be just grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because I have that juxtaposition of looking at growing up at what we did and then hearing what we have now. So I'd be a fool not to have gratitude every day. And for me, it is 100% recognizing. It's so kind when you say these words, right? When you let the bio and I still just say there's an ignorance about me. And I think that's a part of it too, maybe, is there's an ignorance that when people are like, oh yeah, I saw your ad. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like, oh, I heard about your clinic. I go, really? Like, I'm still surprised.
I love it.
I'm like, we've been in town for 19, 20 years, right? And I'm like, people are like, oh, I've heard about you guys. I'm like, really? Like, it's just like, and I'm like, no crap, Jay, because you've got marketing everywhere, right? And so it's like, yeah, but there's an ignorance and there's just an absolute, there's set time every day. For me, it's my morning time, right? There's rituals that I've committed to. Again, I'm a systems guy, right? So I have a prayer chair, right? So every morning I start my day off. The first 45 to 60 minutes of my day is what I call coffee with God. Yeah. So I brew a cup of coffee and I sit down in my prayer chair and I thank God for being in my life, and I have conversations with him. I'm a devout practicing Catholic, so I spend the next time in rosary and deep prayer, and I pray for people. I bring people to my awareness. I bring my staff. I bring my patients. I pray for you guys. Like I'm praying in the morning I pray for my staff to be of good intent today, so we can be there for you guys or our patients. Um, Pray for my family that's gone away from, a faith, right? I pray for my dad who's in heaven, I hope, right? I pray for the people we've lost, my father-in-law who I just recently lost. Like, so it's that. It's looking at times when I get away from that, when I get too caught up in worldly anxiety, which I've shared with you.
Yeah.
Um, and it has happened. The last couple of years, especially summers, I've gotten a little bit anxiety based. And, as you know, we have a big family. I have 4 kids. My mom lives with us, so we got 7 people in our house, right? It's a big house, right? Like, there's a lot of energy in that. Like, I meant big house, like a lot of
I mean,
energy.
if they have any energy like their dad, then yeah.
Yeah, they look like their mom and they act like me, which is
Oh,
bad, right?
gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, so there's been times when I've fallen away from that state of grace, and I can only focus on like the busyness,
Sure.
and I know that's not a healthy place. But it's, as you saw, like, clearly getting emotional about it. It's like when I can just focus on like what's really important, and openly. I mean, to be straight up, losing my father-in-law last December. It was my wife's family split up, so I have 2 father-in-laws, right? So I lost one of the 2, and seeing what happens again in an instant. I was there the whole time, and it put things in perspective yet again for me. Like, this is all make believe. This is all doesn't matter.
Right.
All the stuff that we're really stressing about, really, at the end, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm with him one moment, and then within a few days, he's gone. And then every possession that might have meant something is now going to be distributed to grandkids or sold or whatever. It's just stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But what it taught me is just what really matters is how you make people feel, and maybe, like you said earlier, what's that positive ripple effect? Like, so, like, my dad at the end of his life was filling vending machines for his livelihood, right? Again, he didn't create a business. He wasn't on podcasts. He didn't write a book, but the church was packed with people, and it's like, at the end of your life, my hope is that to say that dude was a good dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he tried to make people feel better, like my dad did.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, doesn't matter if you're rolling a Benz or if you're rolling a Toyota. It's like, how did you make people feel? And so your question, the reason I immediately started stirring up emotions, I just thought of my dad, and I thought of the life lessons and 20 some odd years of doing this work and the constantly working on myself. Because, man, if you don't love who you are and who you see in the mirror, the devil's lying to us constantly, trying to tell us we're not good enough, trying to tell us we're not enough, not making enough money, not making enough impact, not pretty enough, not good enough, not strong enough, not big enough, right? And it's real easy to, like, fall into that trap. And so the opposite is just, like, continue to, like, give thanks for what you got, whatever you got, whatever gifts you got, try to maximize them, try to help people, try to make the most of them. And then the biggest other trap I look to try to not fall into is comparison.
That's good.
Comparison is definitely the thief of joy.
It's hard.
So, like, when I compare myself or my life journey to others, it can make you feel elated in this fake bravado, which isn't healthy,
Right.
or make you feel like you're not enough because you haven't done or achieved or whatever this other dude has, right? So the centering aspect that you've picked up on is intentional. It comes from a lot of prayer work, a lot of meditation, a lot of self-improvement work, and recognizing when I've got icky feelings that you can't cover them up with alcohol, you can't cover them up with drugs, you can't buy a new car, buy another house, something, and expect it to go away, because it's still going to be there. Like, that demon's still going to be there. You got to face it. You got to run into it to get through it. So I appreciate you asking that question. I didn't intend to cry on your podcast.
I feel like you and I have cried together more often than people expect us to cry together.
I told you, I'm an emotional dude who is very good with his manliness, but I'm also okay, like, shedding a tear.
Well,
so
I know we've cried about your stuff, about my stuff, about my dad, about your dad, about all kinds of things. And it's something that you said made me realize there was a thing I didn't write. I didn't write a whole lot of notes of things just because I knew that you and I have a hard time keeping our conversations. You can
Sure.
see
Yeah. Right.
your other clients that are there.
Yeah.
And so the thing about what you described about your morning and your intention, I want you to know that in some of the most difficult times in my life, and see now you're gonna make me cry, I would still show up there and feel better every single time. Not physically, mentally, emotionally. Like I would leave and I would tell my dad this when he's like, I don't want to go today. I'm like, Dad, I've never gone and not felt physically or emotionally better afterwards. The it's just how everyone is there. And it's not pretend, it's real. And you can't go in there in a bad mood and leave in a bad mood. It just doesn't happen. I've even popped in just to get my supplements and leave feeling better. Like it matters. I tell people when I explain to people the connection you make with your patients, I tell them about the day my dog died. And I skipped a week, and then the next week I came in and I was laying face down on a table, guys. Okay. He didn't even see my face, and immediately, like, you'll touch like my shoe or something, usually let me know you're in the room.
Yeah.
And what's wrong? Something's wrong. And I just sat up and cried with you because I lost my girl,
Yeah.
And it's like that connection matters.
Yeah. I
So
appreciate
that work that you do, that capacity that you could create, it works.
I really appreciate that
It does.
very much. I think if you're just so focused on your own crap,
Yeah.
it's hard for you to be a vessel for someone else, right?
Yeah.
That's like going back to my uncle's thing about leaving the crap outside the door before you walk in. For me, I got to leave the spiritual crap as well, the emotional stuff. I got to work on those things, and I got to get myself in a place of gratitude.
Yeah.
Again, you study all this stuff. It's like, and I think a lot of people are going to become more aware of it, but healing comes from certain levels of vibration. We know that.
Yeah.
Right? Cells will break down and break down and die when they're not vibrating on a certain level of hertz. Like
Yeah.
there's a vibration. We all have a vibration. For those of your listeners who don't know, there's vibration. Everything is, subatomic particles, and it's all vibratory, right? And how they connect. This is well established in quantum physics. But it's like we vibrate as human beings at certain frequencies too.
Yeah.
Sadness and happy, joy, gratitude, they're all different. Love, they're all different vibrations. And I think that I just know my heart, and it's like I gotta come from a place of like happy J.
Yeah.
Right? Like gratitude J.
Yeah.
Right. And when I come from that place, like I can be there for Jamie and I can be there for everyone. And I can just love on people.
Yeah.
Right. But when I'm stuck in my head and I'm stressing about stuff,
Sure.
I'm not the only one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think most people are that way. When we're stuck in our head, I think Tony Robbins says, when you're stuck in your head, you're dead, right?
Yes, he does say
And,
that.
and it's like that's so true. It's like when we're stuck in our head and not in our heart. I mean, the heart is like what really matters. Like what really matters.
Yeah.
I'm getting super clear on that, like super clear.
I think that's the key. And my coach always tells me this, as I've gone through this healing process, and something that I've told you a little bit about it, like when you're discovering these things and you're sitting and doing all the protocols and doing things, there's a bit of isolation to it. It just kind of naturally, it's a lot to manage. And I remember her telling me, she was like, I know that that's possible, or that's necessary right now, but I can't wait until you get to this spot where you get to realize how much the connection that you have with other people and that you get to have with other people is healing. And so that just popped into my head while we were saying this. I think it's a beautiful way really to end the conversation, because you and I could talk for 4 hours more.
Indeed.
Easily.
We would give Joe Rogan a run for his money, for
Right,
his length.
easily.
Yeah.
And I think that the way that you guys do your practice creates that level too. So like maybe people come in like me, and at first they're not able to actually recognize that part of what's healing them is the connection, and part of what's healing them is that the girls that check you in while you're doing your exercises know your names. Everyone there knows your name. Like it's wild. And that's also not pretend. Like they remember, because then when the girls have moved on to different positions, so they're not sitting at the computer where they hear my name when I click in, they still remember your name too. And like that piece is healing, if not just as healing as the actual adjustments and supplemental medicine and things. So I think it's a beautiful full circle thing that you guys do. And my hope is everyone listening, that you take that from this and that you can find something like that for yourself.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come here and talk with you on your podcast. very cool. I said it once, I'll say it again. I feel very blessed and very honored to call you friend, call your brother friend, to love on your mom and your dad as well. So thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming. Like I said, I tell people all the time, I'm like, Dr. Jason literally changed our lives. And it matters. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So if you appreciate or like this message and you think anyone else could learn from this, please hit that share button. Send it over to anyone that you think could benefit from it. And as always, make sure that you're subscribed and you're liking. And if you do share, make sure you tag us. Thank you for being here. And until next time, bye. Thank you for listening to Operation B, the podcast. To support this message and to support the show, please make sure that you like, follow, and share the podcast wherever you enjoy listening. And be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. Thank you for being here and see you next time.